So, you want to write a musical? Welcome to the dark side. The glittery side? Whether it's because you had an idea that you think would be great, or you're chasing after those smash hit musicals like The Lion King and Wicked, or because you want to be the next breakout writer like Lin-Manuel Miranda, or maybe just because you think musicals are awesome, you came to the right place. If you want to write a musical, there are a lot of questions you probably have, and with all of the information that is out there now, it can be difficult to know where to start. Come with me. Let's simplify. The idea. You do need one of those. I know it sounds obvious, but you do. Perhaps you have a story that's calling to you, begging the question of, can this be a musical? That's a great place to start. Perhaps you need to search out a story, one that does indeed resonate with you. Is it a book, a movie, a real-life figure, history, a TV show, a play, a comic book? The world is open to you. Or perhaps you have that rare situation where you didn't have to come up with the idea because someone approached you about writing a very specific musical idea. It's rare, but hey, it happens. Okay, now that we've got our idea, there's more to explore on it, but put a pin in that for the moment. Because first, we need to know who's involved. Team members can refer to a lot of different kinds of people in this process, but very critically, since we're looking at writing specifically in this video, we are talking about your writing collaborator. Who will be writing this musical? Is it going to be you alone? And if not, what pieces of the writing do you plan to be responsible for? The book, the music, the lyrics, some combo platter? And which of these elements are you missing and need someone to help come fill in the gaps for? Do you have a collaborator in mind, or do you need to go on a hunt? Knowing who is going to write what and having that set before you dive deep into the writing process is going to be critical. It will help smooth out the rest of the process, I promise you. And if you're the one being approached about a project, I just will offer this small piece of advice that you don't want to sign on to a project long term that you're not fully excited about. Because eventually that will come into play in the writing, and then the product is going to be less good and it's less fun too. Don't do it. Okay, who else may be involved beyond the writing collaborators? Depending on the story you chose, there may be some people already attached in here that we need to work with or deal with. This could be about attaining the rights to the story if it's a book or a movie or a play, or perhaps it's about trying to bring those people on board as collaborators or partners of some variety. Sometimes people will be happy to give you a set exclusive period of time to write your story for an adaptation, particularly if the rights are being held by a certain author or by a well-known movie studio. Sometimes these people may want to be in contact with you and in conversation and advise you or help steer you along the way, have a relationship of some sort. This could be the case with a non-fiction story or a biography that is being adapted. And sometimes these people want to come on board as actual writers, and that's cool. But perhaps the original authors are deceased, in which case you may be speaking with an estate on their behalf or on behalf of the rights and where they're being held. This case usually ends up being more of a negotiation and less of a collaboration, not always, but if you do run into this situation, and honestly, in any of the rights situations, I strongly suggest speaking with legal representation about how it is best for you specifically to proceed. Because I'm not a lawyer, and this is definitely not legal advice. Or maybe your story is in the public domain, which is usually the easiest and smoothest way to go. And if it is in the public domain, then there's a good chance that the author has still left behind some sort of notes or research that you can take and look into, see if it's useful to you at all. Could be helpful. The last category of the team that might be involved is on the production side of the team. Perhaps a theater commissioned the piece you're writing, in which case you will definitely need to be in contact with them. Or maybe a producer or a studio approached you about writing this story and you need to speak with them. Or perhaps this idea actually came from a director and they needed someone to write it, and so one of your team members may be a director. Or perhaps you even have a dramaturg who hopped on board in the writing process and is on board as a collaborator. There are plenty of ways that other team members can look, but if it's not useful to you and your process in this moment, then I suggest strongly just focusing on your writing collaborators first and foremost, getting them set and settled, because now we have to answer the crucial questions. You've got your idea, you've got your team, so now you have to answer a few sets of crucial questions that are going to help act as your guide throughout the entirety of the process. In fact, these questions are so critical and so useful that I've compiled them down into what I lovingly call your North Star question set. Of course, it is great and necessary to know your idea, but that's really just the spark that ignites the tinder of everything else to come. And now we need to collect that tinder. Since these questions are so important, I've put them into a free downloadable PDF, which I will link to in the description below. I highly suggest you download those and utilize them to full advantage for any and all projects in your life moving forward. They're great, they're useful, and again, it's free, just down there. In short, these questions are going to point you toward the why behind the key aspects of the musical you're about to write. Things like, why this story? Why a musical? Why are you the one to write it? Who are you trying to reach? What messages are you presenting? And honestly, so much more. All the questions in that PDF are absolutely critical to have answered, and especially to have initially answered early in the process. Those answers are going to make the rest of your process of writing and development so much smoother and more efficient. And honestly, who doesn't want that? So again, make sure to grab that PDF. Link in description below. Download it, use them, okay! Where we're headed. Before pen and paper or finger and instrument can meet, we do need to know where it is we are headed. What will the end product most likely look like, sound like, and feel like? This means having a sense of the show's structure and musical sound, in addition, of course, to the answers of the North Star question set. Structurally, musicals can look extremely different. Some are 75-minute one acts, and others are 3 hours plus epic musical journeys. Some are chock full of songs or even fully sung through, and others have just a smattering of songs, maybe 10 or 12 across an entire evening. Some shows are extremely linear, while others are more of a conceptual exploration. Some musicals have a framing device, such as looking backwards in time, and other musicals just sit us down onto the train and get us on the rails and keep us chugging. Some musicals follow the standard 3-act or 5-act structure, while others use different structural models as their basis, or even combine different models. For adaptations, the structure of the original tale may be useful, but it also may not be. You may see that structure and throw it out and make your own for your adaptation of that story. As for the musical sound, there are many things to consider. Is the music wholly original, or an existing catalog, or is it influenced by a set of music that already exists? Does it need to evoke a certain time period or geographical location? Will this sound more like musical theater music or like pop music? And is it going to be more in the classical realm, the contemporary realm, a mixture, something new, something different? Does it evoke a certain genre or style of music? What type of instrumentation would you ideally like? And what would be the most boiled down version of that instrumentation? Will you write your music on your instrument of choice, or will you write directly onto the paper or into notation software? Are there going to be applause breaks, dance numbers, ensemble songs? Is it entirely composed through or even sung through? Now, you don't have to have all this decided before you write that first draft, but knowing the answers to a lot of this, or at least having considered it, will make the process a lot smoother. Get to it! Okay, that's enough planning and intellectualizing, methinks. It's time to actually sit down and write the first draft. And it made me feel excited, well, excited and scared. You may feel the need to tackle an outline or storyboard or any other way of organizing your thoughts in your story, and now is a great time to do so as you go into this journey of beginning to write your first draft. Other writers prefer to pants it as they get into this process. Whether you're a planner or a pantser, doesn't really matter as long as that method works for you. Once you're actually writing the draft, however, I will suggest to you to try to just let it fly as much as possible. Judgment here is not going to be your friend. Now, I'm not going to say you can't edit a little bit as you write. I'm not one of those people, but I will say that self-criticism is the thing that can and will likely slow you down. Writing is scary at times, but this is a first draft, and no one's going to see this first draft besides you, so I offer to you to grant yourself a little bit of grace as you go through this part of the process, if you're able to. After the first draft, congratulations, you wrote a musical! It may not be the best musical, and in fact at this stage it may very well suck. But you did it! Now is the time that you need to do one of the hardest and most vulnerable things that a writer can do. read it and listen to it. Of course, make a pass or two at the first draft yourself before doing this, but then the best next step is to put together a first reading of some variety so you can hear this thing aloud and get some new perspectives on the material and where you might need to head next. I highly suggest you start casual and low stakes, but you do you. Either way, once we get into development, then revision can begin, and that is where we do all of that deep writing work. And if you want to know more about that stage in the writing process, once you've finished your first draft, then you should watch this video next. Otherwise, thank you all for being here with me today, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers!